Hey, everybody, this is Jonathan Ogden, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
Hey, Bruin fans, this is David Singleton, and you're listening to the Once Bruin Show. Go Bruins.
Hey, this is Wayne Cook, and you're listening to What's Bruin Show.
Hey, guys, it's Chris Johnson, UCLA national champion. I need y'all to listen to the What's Bruin Show. These dudes are off the hook.
This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show network, with your hosts, Jake Berryfield and Mike Regalado, and occasionally some friends, talking all things UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Hello and welcome to What's Bruin. I am your host, Jake Berryfield, and in a few minutes, I'm going to play Mike's part of the podcast. We're going to do a split pod today because we weren't together this last Tuesday night because I was out celebrating my birthday with my family, and thank you very much. And thank you, everybody out there, for listening to What's Bruin Show. It's What's Bruin Show on the What's Bruin Show network. Thank you for your support. Again, at What's Bruin Show on Twitter, what'sbruinshow@gmail.com on the email, patreon.com/What's Bruin Show, or just what'sbruinshow.com, or the Substack, what'sbruin.substack.com, for just a couple bucks a month. You can send the What's Bruin Show into the future. I really $2. Appreciate it. And, the future. That's what we're here to talk about today because, unfortunately, UCLA is 0-3. And that means 3 bells. Those darn bells. That first bell was Utah. This got transferred to the Rose Bowl. We're all there. Giant, whiplash. We thought the Bruins might be pretty good this year. We still thought they might lose to Utah, but we thought they might be okay. Turns out not. No, that was a sign. They get trounced by the Utah Utes. What is a Ute indeed? Ute is a horrible, terrible force of football coming up from the middle of the country, crashing down upon our Bruin heads this year. And then, even less predictably, an absolute demolishing down 23-0 to UNLV, and then a failed comeback attempt. And that was, turns out, the last bit of juice that Deshaun Foster's Bruins would show was that second half against UNLV, but it turned out to be one of the most embarrassing losses in school history, right up until the following week when they lost 35-10 to New Mexico. That was the final bell so far, going into the bye week. But it was the final bell, curtains for the Deshaun Foss era. No more. Almost done before it started. And when we were sitting there thinking about week 1 and thinking that Utah was a pretty good team and thinking that the Bruins weren't that bad and all the hope and potential, them getting to a bowl game or whatever, was there, I told you guys, I said, the Bruins go 0-4. If that Doomsday bell strikes 4, because there was no possible way it could happen, they weren't going to lose to UNLV and they weren't going to lose to New Mexico. Well, I said that if they went 0-4, and that would mean that they would lose to Northwestern too, that would mean the What's Bruin Show was going off the air forever. So if that Doomsday bell strikes this Saturday in Evanston on that makeshift field, only seats in the end zones, guess what? What's Bruin Show? Done. Forever, I don't know, but it's done. We're shutting it down. No more What's Bruin Show. And that's just, I'm a man of my word. I don't know what to tell you. I just turned 50. I'm a man of my word. Not going to sit here, talk about this team after I said we're going to cancel the show. And then we have 4 bell tolls, and here's the final one. Maybe, I don't know. Well, we'll stop before it's done. Because it hasn't struck yet. Bruins go beat Northwestern, and then all of a sudden What's Bruin Show's on the air next week. Who knows? But if it strikes, shutting it down. I know Mike doesn't want to hear that. Mike doesn't even mention on his half hour. Doesn't even bring it up. He doesn't want to acknowledge it. He's tuning it out, blocking it out. But it's going to happen. So, we got that going for us. The Bruins are on their way to play Northwestern. Well, I got one quote for you. It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. And I'm Jake in this situation. I'm saying hit it. Will the Bruins win? I don't know. Got a couple hotline calls here. 805-399-4WS. Second Rain and Troy. Rain and Troy just went to the Man's Chinese Theater for the first time yesterday. See Apollo 13. They had a good time. And that's lovely. I'm glad they did. But Carrie called to talk about the coachless Bruins. So see what she has to say. And then we'll get on with it.
Hey, what's Bruin Show? It's Carrie. And just
Hi,
calling
Carrie.
to say hello and see if you're doing a show tonight. My comments are probably they are limited to the coaching search. I know it's a pie in the sky for a lot of people, but I want Curt Cignetti. If UCLA can outbid Indiana for him, would he come to UCLA? I think he might. It probably depends on what Tino tells him. But I think the chancellor and hopefully the regents, I think the regents are the biggest problem here, are ready to completely change the structure of athletics to get the best coach available. And at the same time, the UC regents are also trying to increase visibility of their research capabilities in light of Trump's attempt to take money, millions and millions of dollars from UCLA research. Their campaign is not going very well in my view. If they want to increase visibility and goodwill with people, they're much more likely to understand football success than research success, which is sad, but true. And getting the football program back to a very functional, very winning program will do that. Will fill that void. And I see that factor as being influential in shifting the athletics program. The football program. But I don't know much about the Indiana AD, but perhaps we should get him too. Make it a package deal. If we have the money, I think it would bring a lot of donor support. We would need to have something in place to get more donors rather than relying on these same donors over and over again. That infrastructure needs to be built along with the NIL. And I think the chancellor and whatever committee they're putting together is well aware of this, and the regents need to sign off on it. But otherwise, I think UCLA is a great destination, and I'm a little sick of hearing UCLA fans say that no coach would want to coach at UCLA. That's too bad that they have that perspective, but I think that's not the truth. And I forgot to say that I was happy to hear Darth Diego leave a message for the last show. Yeah, so hopefully, I'm with him on just the whole need to redo the athletic program structure so that football can thrive. Anyhow, that's it for me. Again, go Bruins.
Thank you, Carrie, for calling. I appreciate it. We always appreciate it. And you're such a great caller. And a couple things. Number one, Carrie's right with me. If I had my druthers, first choice, let's go, get on it, it'd be Curt Cignetti too. But unfortunately, I think there's just no possible way. It's hard to believe, but the arrow's pointed up for Indiana football, believe it or not. And it is because of what he did. And the Bruins could have made a hire like that had they done things differently at the end of the Kelly era, but they didn't. And this is the hole they've dug themselves right now. But yeah, I would make Curt Cignetti say no to UCLA first and foremost. That would be great, because I just think he's a coach that is at the peak of his powers, but still not at the peak of his powers sort of job. And despite what you hear with the national media and the local media and the self-loathing Bruin fans, Indiana isn't in and of itself a better job than UCLA. It is right now because they've got it rolling, but part of that is because of Cignetti, and Mike's going to talk about what his thoughts are on the job in a minute and what the UCLA position is and whether they have money or not. And, we talked to you about this last week. I'm not going to go over it again, but a lot of the things that people point to about how bad the job is are just not true. And It's just because they're at a low point that everybody's kind of crapping on it. But UCLA is not a worse job than Purdue or, I don't care. Pick half the Big Ten, Minnesota, Illinois. I don't care. Michigan State. It's probably not a worse job than Nebraska at this point. And people might call you crazy for that, but I'll stick to it. Northwestern as well. Rutgers. Okay. Go over to the SEC and we'll pick out some teams from there too. It's a better job than Vandy and Mississippi State and friggin' Kentucky and Arkansas. It's better than all of those. And the reason why is because of the freaking ceiling. If you get it right in Los Angeles, it doesn't matter if SC's here. It doesn't matter if friggin' the Chargers and the Rams are here and the Lakers and all that stuff. If you get it right, it can roll, and there's plenty of room for success and money to come in from UCLA. And they have a ginormous alumni base, many of which who got money, what they'll spend on the football team when it's not literally an embarrassment, when they're not actively trying to chase fans away, when they're not actively trying to discourage people from following the program. And from the tail end of the Moore era, when he went kind of bonkers, and then they hired Chip Kelly, and we all got excited, and then he basically gave double middle fingers over and over to anybody who was interested in the program for 4 or 5 years, and then they jacked up his firing, and then they went out and made possibly the worst hire they could possibly make. God bless Deshaun Foster, but you hired a coach that didn't have any coaching experience whatsoever, not even as a coordinator, and you hired him late. What do you expect to happen at that point? Sure, we were optimistic. Sure, we thought there was a chance, but it was still a very narrow window to do that. But if you just don't completely screw up the job, this is not a bad job. And I just compared it to the two Big Two teams. God help me about the Power Four teams. Now, do we still wish there was a Pac-12? Do we still wish that they were competing against the traditional schools? Yeah, I do. I miss that. But they're not anymore. But at least they're in the Big Two conferences, at least for the time being, right? And if they can get it switched around, they can get, they actually stop completely underachieving, then they'll be in better shape than most of the teams in the Big 12 and the ACC is too. Except for the teams that are like at the very top of those two conferences that are going to perennially make the playoff and they have it rolling and they're dominating their conference. At worst, UCLA is in better shape than all of those teams. UCF, Syracuse, Virginia, Duke, NC State, Louisville, Boston College, and Wake Forest, let alone Oregon State and Washington State. Yeah, the state of a lot of those programs is better than what UCLA is right now at this current moment when it's been just crapped on and crapped on and crapped on for years, but it's not a worse job. If just someone competent comes in and takes advantage of what there is to have at UCLA, it's at worst going to be better than those programs, in better shape, and the ceiling for it is much higher than any of those. So here's hoping the UCLA administration doesn't give up on the Bruins and the football program. But them seeing the level of despair on the fans' faces, the level of apathy out there for what the process has been the last number of years, that should be a sign for them to get their shit together. And hopefully that it is. And it's not acceptable for UCLA to be a 500 team in one of these conferences. I don't care what conference it is, perennially. It's got to be better than that. You got to be trying to be better than that. And when you are better than that, there'll be plenty of people out there to watch them. There'll be plenty of interest in the Bruins. That's if you're not trying to chase away all the fans and media at the same time. So let's get the process right and see where we land. But we're not going to know anything for a few months. So I'm not even going to get into the different coaches and possibilities and whatnot. I'm going to wait and see who they end up hiring. But, I'm sure you guys are very interested in there, like who they're interested in, who's on the hot board and all that stuff. But we're not going to know for a little bit anyway. So I'm going to not worry about it quite yet. But ideally, they're hiring someone with either head coaching experience that's not old and over the hill, or someone who's a really good coordinator that's not old and over the hill, and someone that's motivated to make the most of the job that they're at. That's really all I'm looking for. Someone who's got enough experience to know what they're doing, but that isn't so old that they're lazy and don't want to do the job. Because this is a job, like I said, they have been underachieving. They are at their low point. They just had the worst, back-to-back worst losses in history, pretty much, the worst start in school history, even with those crappy Chip Kelly teams. And there are some things that need to be fixed. But there's plenty of runway and room to fix this program if they want to do it. And hopefully they get a coach There's not one guy that could do it. There's probably 50 guys that could do it, as I've said before. So go out and get one of those guys and let him come in and get stuff fixed. That's what we're hoping for. So I'm not going to do a show preview for you. Mike's going to do a little one at the end of his little segment thing. But what I will say is I do have one trivia question for you. So let's get to the trivia. We have to do that in honor of The Godfather and Northwestern.
Now it's time for Jake's Trivia, brought to you by Jake, bringing you all the coolest trivia of UCLA football's opponent for this coming week. And now, Jake.
I was planning on having The Godfather give you a quick little Northwestern talk because I was supposed to have lunch with him today, but we had to cancel lunch because his car broke down. So I'm sad about that. I hope you get your car fixed, Godfather, very quickly. But the trivia for Northwestern this week is, of course, Jim Endat, graduate of Northwestern. I did his undergrad there, and he's a proud Wildcat alum. He'll wear the split Alabama, split Northwestern gear, the split UCLA, split Northwestern gear. And, of course, his lovely wife, the St. Maryland, went to UCLA. That's how it explains his UCLA fandom as well. But when he was a student there, he led a charge to get the nickname of the school. I don't remember what they were before, if they were already the Wildcats, he wanted to change. But anyways, he was leading a charge to get them changed into the Purple Haze. And that's awesome. And I love that story. And I wish he was here to tell it. But that's your trivia about Northwestern. The Godfather, Jim Endat, our friend, almost got the mascot of the Northwestern Wildcats changed to the Purple Haze. And they lost narrowly in a vote. I think the school cheated or something. But it's a great story, and he'll tell again sometime on the air. But with that being said, let's get to Mike.
You're listening to What's Bruin, a show about anything and everything Bruin sports. I am your host, Mike Regalado, and I'm not exactly sure how this episode is going. We might do Splitsville. We might do, it might just be a solo show with me. I'm not sure. The reason why? It is our homie Jake's 50th birthday. So yeah, he is clearly out and about because, turning 50, probably a little bit more popular than the What's Bruin show, especially now in the last few weeks. But anyway, happy Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday to you if you're listening to it on those days. But it's been a very interesting week in UCLA football. So when we last left our heroes, those of the UCLA Bruin cloth, they had, and we obviously covered this in the last podcast, but just a quick recap. UCLA goes 0-3 after losing to New Mexico State by 25, a team they should have beat by 14.5 points, or at least they were expected to beat by that much, and it didn't happen. Things moved quickly Friday night and Saturday. And that Sunday, it was announced that Deshaun Foster would be relieved of his duties as the UCLA head football coach. Tim Skipper, who was an interim coach with Fresno State the last year and some change, he joined the UCLA staff this season, and he's taken over. Now, he's already talked to the media twice since then. I really like how I like his approach. You know, he addressed the whole Deshaun Foster situation, said he considers him like family, but things needed to change. He even said it's not good when there's an interim head coach. So he's aware of what he has to do, and he knows that he's here for the remainder of the season, the remaining 9 games, because I do not think that UCLA has enough in the tank to, at the very least, go bowling. UCLA is projected, at least by ESPN, to, and a few others. Kelly Ford predicted 1 win this season. ESPN predicted 1 win this season. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team functions and produces as we go through these remaining weeks of this 2025 season, which has just been abysmal. And on top of that, well, I was going to say, there's been a perspective of UCLA that is just not correct. A lot of people are saying UCLA didn't have money
or it was this fault, it was this person's fault why it happened, this person's fault why it happened. Let me tell you right now, the reason UCLA is in this position is primarily because of Chip Kelly, who tried to tinker with UCLA and make it his own, but not in a way a head coach should. He spent the first 2 seasons completely ripping everything out and trying to bring in the guys that he wanted, and it took a while. But UCLA finally had success, but they weren't where they should be. They weren't where Chip Kelly took Oregon a decade prior. They were a good team, and it could be seen that they could be great. That didn't happen. Didn't really focus on defense for a while. Just hiring his friends to become defensive coordinators until he actually figured out, I got to do something. Brought in Danton Lin. Did a hell of a job that season, but Danton bolted for USC, and about 2 months, I believe, he left UCLA to be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, leaving UCLA in shambles, using UCLA scrambling to try to find a head coach. Now, a lot of things that I'm hearing from people say is that UCLA doesn't have any money, they can't compete. No, UCLA does have the money. Chip Kelly had millions of dollars for meals. He had millions of dollars for GPS tracking. He just didn't do the work for NIL to bring the money for his players. The fact that UCLA was able to get someone like Donovan Dent for the men's basketball team shows that UCLA has money. The mistake after Kelly left was Martin Jarman kind of going with a bit of a discount with Deshaun Foster. Deshaun Foster had already accepted the running backs coach position with the Vegas Raiders. He interviewed him and brought him back while there were other coaching candidates that were more up to snuff or were more credentialed, if you will, to be a head coach. Deshaun Foster, no coordinator experience, no head coaching experience. He seemed to do pretty well last year, but that was still seen as pretty bad. So the fact that you bring in more players and what was thought to be a better coaching staff looked absolutely horrendous. This team looked bad. It looked worse than Eric Bieniemy's offense. The defense didn't do well either, and that's another thing. Akeka Malloy, UCLA's defensive coordinator, is no longer UCLA's defensive coordinator. From what we were hearing, he wanted to take the bullet for Deshaun Foster. But even after Foster was fired, he still thought that he kind of let, from what I understand, he kind of felt like he let the team down and mutually parted ways with UCLA. So they don't have a defensive coordinator or a head coach. From what Tim Skipper said, it's going to be on all of the defensive coaches, but they did seem to get some help. They brought in Kevin Coyle, who was with Rutgers, I believe, like very recently actually, to help with the defense. I don't know how much help he could bring in. At the very least, he brings in a bit of organization to where I guess it would land on one person rather than multiple people. But it didn't. We have yet to see exactly what's going on. Skipper also said that he was diving deep into the roster to see who can help out. Guys who haven't really gotten a look, he was looking at those guys. And who knows what's going to happen. Skipper, he kind of has a pass. No matter what happens, even if he goes 0-9, he gets a pass. This isn't his fault. He didn't put UCLA in this position. It could be said that it was both Deshaun Foster and Martin Jarman for making this hire. But this is basically where we are. UCLA is in a load of trouble and needs to right the ship. Now, that's the thing. As I was saying, UCLA has money. They got to figure out how to use it better. They need to win. Obviously, people are like, oh, the Rose Bowl's not full. Why would recruits want to come here? UCLA should play this, and this was just bugging. This has been bugging me all week. Many people saying, "Oh, UCLA should just play at Drake Stadium at UCLA." That can't happen, people, for two major reasons, both involving money. Number one, UCLA is in a contract with the Rose Bowl until 2044. They're not going anywhere. And the fact that people say, "Oh, UCLA can't fill the Rose Bowl," well, they did under Mora. They did under previous coaches when they were winning, going to bowls, going to Rose Bowls. But that hasn't been the identity of UCLA in the last 2 decades, sans Jim Mora. And, just this perception, it's got to be wiped away. What is really happening is the fact that the UCLA athletic department needs to step up and really show that they're serious. Martin Jarman is under a lot of scrutiny right now because of the decisions he's made. And really quickly, I just want to say, yes, I know a lot of people are upset with Martin Jarman. Football, he should not be judged on this football decision, even though it was a very big, bad decision. He has been able to bring in Esosa, the women's soccer coach. He helped clean up what was going on with the men's soccer team. Keeping guys like Corey Close, Coach Savage of the baseball team. UCLA overall, the athletics department has been it's still pretty competitive, except for football. But that's the thing. Football is the first major sport of the academic year. It's the one everyone's excited from. We get back from summer, and that's what everyone's focused on. That's the moneymaker. That is what you need to bring in money. That's what will put UCLA back on the map. UCLA, way back in the day, was a very good football team. They were competing at a high level. 70s, 80s, 90s. Since then, it hasn't been anywhere near where it should be. And that is it's a bit of a crime. Not really, but the fact that UCLA has severely underachieved in its football program, it lies on a bunch of people. And it's just a chain reaction. There really isn't one person, although this recent, I don't even know what to call it, this era of UCLA football, a lot of that has to do with Chip Kelly. He was given everything in the world and still squandered it. Yeah, didn't help that UCLA couldn't put the money out for Danton Lynn. Probably should have fired Chip Kelly before he left. Got a proper coach. And really quickly, proper coach. Let me revise that. Not a proper coach, a coach with head coaching experience. Because also, this seemed to be a no-win situation for Deshaun Foster. I actually feel really bad for him. He's a beloved UCLA Bruin. He was doing everything he could to bring back the spirit of UCLA. And it was working to an extent. W's would help that, but hey, whatever. And it did seem like he was surrounding himself with people that have been there before, like Tim Skipper. He wasn't on the coaching staff, but he was like an offensive analyst, I believe. So he wanted to succeed, no doubt. I if anyone thinks that Deshaun Foster was purposefully trying to tank UCLA football, that's just some BS. But I do feel bad for him and his family. And I really hope he gets a coaching gig where he can come back and, rehabilitate his career, because he deserves more than that. Just not a. This just didn't work out. It just went bad really quickly. It was the first time UCLA went 0-3 to start the season since 2019. Prior to that, and that was a Chip Kelly team in 2019. Prior to that, UCLA didn't win their first 3 games. The last time that happened, that they didn't win their first 3 games, was in 1971 under Pepper Rogers. I wasn't alive then. That shouldn't happen. There's a reason it was back then. Way back then, but... a little bit of a rant, but yes, I'm kind of catching everybody up with what's going on here and trying to put out the proper narrative as to what is going on with UCLA, because it seems like there are a lot of people that have their opinions about it, especially those that are not associated with UCLA. And there are even national pundits where, you know, they know people in the UCLA program, but they don't really follow it as much as they do. Like, their job is to follow all, you know, the national scene. But anyway, so that's where we are right now. And it's it sucks. But silver lining. And we're kind of going to go over this and monitor what UCLA is, what coaches they're tracking. Because at this point, if UCLA screws up this hire, fire the entire athletic department into the sun. I'm just saying. There is no reason they should screw this up. UCLA should and can get the money to bring in a top quality coach. Even, and like Jake and I were talking about last week, happy birthday, Jake. Even a successful coordinator. And everyone's talking about Tony White, who was up for the job last year when UCLA was looking for a head coach. There are other head coaches that people are trying to get associated with UCLA. Kalen DeBoer, that's mine. I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know how much they actually hate him in Tuscaloosa. Jed Fish in Arizona. Jonathan Smith, Michigan State. I'm not going to go through a whole list. Jake does want to do that, but I think we're going to try to evaluate that list when we're both together. So that'll probably be next week. And it's going to be a process. It's still September. It's freaking hot. I hate this weather. But it's still only September. And UCLA has some time. They should not screw this up. UCLA's new chancellor, Julio Frank, is apparently part of the process. And he said that, in a statement, said that he wants Martin Jarman to be a part of the hiring process, but I think they need a few more people. I think they maybe need to go with a committee to try to figure out exactly what they're looking for and to actually land a quality head coach who will bring back more than just spirit, but will bring back winning, bowl games, and hopefully appearances in the college football playoff. So that's my little rant with that. The thing now is that, well, crap, UCLA still has games to play. They had this a bye week, which was more than just a bye week to rest and recuperate. It was to see who wants to be a part of something big. As much as it can be big right now. So where do we go from here? Well, Evanston, Illinois, to a stadium that apparently houses something like 14,000. I don't know. I wrote it down in my weekly Bruin Report article. But it's UCLA is playing a Northwestern team, which is cellar dwelling with the Bruins currently. They've won one game. They got blasted by Oregon last week. And they're looking to get some more wins as well. But UCLA is still looking to get their first. Now, I don't know the temperature of the room, in a temperature of the locker room. I don't know if these guys are going to step up, if they're going to play for Deshaun Foster, if they're going to play for Tim Skipper, but they still got to play no matter what. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly what Skipper does and how he redoes this UCLA offense and defense. But yeah, these are two bad teams that are going up against each other. UCLA's stats are just abysmal. Northwestern not great either. But let's go through UCLA really quickly. Let's go UCLA offense, Northwestern defense. Total offense for UCLA, 324 yards, 111th in the nation. Scoring offense, only 14.3 points, 130th in the nation. Now, total defense for Northwestern, only allowing 325. That's 53rd in the nation. Not horrible, not great, but not horrible. Not like UCLA. They're also only allowing 153 yards through the air. That's 21st in the nation. Luckily, if UCLA can figure out how to get their run game going, which is only putting up 122 yards per game, if they can squeeze in a little more, because Northwestern is allowing 172 yards on the ground. But that doesn't necessarily mean that UCLA is going to be going to turn things around in the rush game. Hell, I can imagine in a game like this, Northwestern shuts down UCLA's rushing offense and has their best rushing defense game of the season. Northwestern is allowing 21.3 points per game. That is 62nd in the nation. Now, let's go to let's flip things around. Northwestern only gaining 358.7 yards of total offense, 94th in the nation. UCLA is giving up 431, 121st. UCLA is allowing 36 points per game. That's 125th in the nation. Northwestern only putting up 19.7. That's 113. In this part, it seems when you break it down, UCLA might have an advantage. Their pass defense is only allowing 187 yards, which is 51st in the nation. Northwestern is only gaining 180 yards through the air. The part that's going to probably bite them in the butt, Northwestern is gaining 178 yards on the ground. UCLA gives up 224. So this is not a clear-cut game. This definitely is not a clear-cut win for UCLA. They could definitely trip up and fall flat on their faces. And honestly, this is probably the only win. I didn't even look to see what game it is that UCLA is favored in the rest of the season. But it's probably this one. And if UCLA blows it, there's a chance UCLA can go 0-12. Not great. And yes, it will be an asterisk by saying, oh, well, they only had an interim head coach, fired the guy 3 games in. But you shouldn't. You should have your program ready to go. Deshaun Foster did not have his program ready to go. And it's just an unfortunate situation, because UCLA had a lot of good momentum, and it's just gone. There's no way to get it back. Clearly, I mean, Deshaun Foster is already gone. There's already an interim head coach in place. And this does not get easier for UCLA at all. I mean, the fact that this is probably their last easiest game. It's probably the easiest game remaining on the roster, because heck, UCLA is taking on a few teams that are better than what a lot of people are expecting. They still have to play teams like Maryland, who didn't exactly seem like they would be a great team this year. Well, they're doing better than UCLA. What are they? They're 1-0, 4-0 overall. Justin Martin really picked a better program, didn't he? The weird thing is that this is the first conference game. So UCLA is 0-0. So technically, they're tied for 7th in the conference, because there are already teams who have lost a game. But yeah, UCLA plays Rutgers, Northwestern, Nebraska, Michigan State. All teams that have already lost. But these teams are clearly better than what the Bruins are putting out. And yeah, it's going to be a bit of a trip to see how UCLA goes through this. I mean, are they going to get slaughtered in every single game? Are they going to make it close? Because after Northwestern, Penn State comes to town. And thank God that is a 12:30 p.m. kickoff, because I do not want to spend all day waiting to go to the Rose Bowl just to see an absolute slaughter at the hands of the number 3 Penn State Nittany Lions. After that, they're at Michigan State. Maryland comes to town. Then at Indiana, woof, they just whooped on Illinois. They are pretty legit. Then Nebraska back at the Rose Bowl. At Ohio State, that's a loss. Washington has been doing really well. Washington has an amazing offense this year. That I thought would be maybe a 50-50 game. No, that should probably be a Washington win. And then at USC. USC is doing some pretty fantastic things too, and it's frankly sickening. From a UCLA perspective, actually, this is what USC should have been doing since the first season under Lincoln Riley. USC has definitely underachieved, and that is not the case right now. But they do get a test as they go to, I think they're at Illinois. Or no, Michigan State. Where are they at? No, they're at Illinois this coming week. So that'll be a battle, especially since Illinois just got embarrassed at Indiana last week. So there's a lot in question here with UCLA. And it's not great. Not great at all. But, and again, because we don't know what's going on with now Tim Skipper's UCLA football team, once again, all we know is that we don't know nothing. And that is, it's weird being 3 games in and you still don't know how this football team is how a football team is going to perform. Very bizarre times we are in, but they still got to go through it. This is what they signed up for. They got to finish. And as of now, it does not seem that any other coaches have jettisoned the program. Been jettisoned from the program? I don't know. I'm tired. It's hot. It's stupid. And so far, according to Tim Skipper on Monday, no players, all players are checked in. They're still with the program. So it doesn't seem like any Bruins have entered the transfer portal or plan to enter the transfer portal. But we'll see before Saturday, because Saturday is also the 4th game. So UCLA has a lot of players they can use on Saturday, especially because after 4 games is when players can choose to redshirt or continue playing. So after this game, it's going to be interesting to see who stays, who goes, who wants to redshirt, who wants to continue playing. Definitely going to be an interesting week in UCLA football, not just because the entire narrative of their game and of any article that is written about them, any podcast talked about them, any sports newscast that features them is going to be about how Deshaun Foster was fired and UCLA is just in a very bad place right now. Still, we're covering it because we love you. And it would be quite a feat for UCLA to get this win, but I don't think that is going to happen. I don't know if UCLA has enough, even against a weaker opponent, to rally themselves. But I'm still going to go with the hope. I'm going to pick UCLA to win this game 21-20. And thus, the What's Bruin Show is saved.
What's brewing with you? You ask me. What's brewing with me? Yeah. What's brewing with you? What's brewing with me? What's brewing with you?
As for my What's Brewing, just had a weekend with the kids, especially since we had the bye week off. Yeah, they're well into their schooling, and so we were just working on projects and stuff like this, helping them out with their one of my daughter's cheer programs, practicing volleyball and basketball for my other daughter. My son wants to get into football, still got to have that conversation with his mom, but we shall see. He's getting more and more into football, which I am loving. So just asking questions, what's this and that and this and that. And actually all of them are, specifically because my oldest daughter is a cheerleader at her high school. And, football was never her thing, but she is understanding the excitement and the fun that that surrounds football games, especially high school football. Just something really special about high school football games. College football, they'll learn. They know, because obviously I cover UCLA sports, but then went out Saturday for a friend's birthday party at the Offbeat in Highland Park. Really fun place, really cool spot. And yeah, didn't really do anything. Just really tried to relax this weekend and just chill out. But getting back into it. And this Friday, Pulp is in town. My favorite band. I am going to report back. If you want to see all the videos, I will have them on my Twitters and Instagrams, so you can follow along at home and sing along, just as I did with Oasis a few weeks ago. I missed 9 Inch Nails last week, just wasn't able to make it. Very sad about that because it looked freaking awesome. Still, this should be a fantastic concert. So yeah, so stay tuned for that. But anyway, yes, we will be back next week as we figure out what is going on with UCLA. Because yeah, as I said, if they win, awesome. If they lose, we'll pick out why. Then we'll also be scavenging news reports, sources to see if what players stay, what players go. If they stay, there will be trouble. If they go, it will be double. Whatever it is. I've been listening to the Clash a lot lately. Seems appropriate. But yes, thank you for listening. And as we say after every show, go Bruins.
Thanks to Mike for his What's Bruin. And for me, as I think said at the top of the show, and Mike said, thank you very much. I just turned 50. A nice day. Went to San Diego to watch Megan march against San Diego State. And the Bears, they were 3-0. Now they're 3-1. Got murdered by the Aztecs. But we could see Megan march, and that was fun. And then had a wonderful time in San Diego. Went to now one of my favorite places to get a drink and eat, and that's Eddie V's in San Diego, of all places, which is it's a kind of a small national chain, but they do such a good job. And a couple of my favorite cocktails are over there. You should stop in and grab one if you're ever down there in Seaport Village. And just had a nice weekend, me and my wife, Sarah, and with a little bit of Megan in there as well. And as I said last week, I got a super cool guitar. It's a 1994 Dobro Resonator. And lo and behold, with a little bit of help from Mike, my mom and Sarah had also already gotten me a 1975 Dobro slide guitar, one that sits on your lap. So now I got to learn how to play that thing. But it is super cool, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it tuned because it gets tuned differently than a standard guitar when you play it. But you play it like on your lap, and you have a slide in your hand, and it's really kind of neat. So I already started watching lessons on how to manipulate that thing, but I'm really looking forward to it. So it's been a nice run so far, and I guess we'll see if we're going to do any more What's Bruin shows or if it's gone forever. We'll have to see. Will they beat the Wildcats? I don't know. I guess we'll check back on Tuesday, unless we don't.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin Show.
Oh my God.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's gotta be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, Rock, we place a ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.